We've had all of these challenges that we mentioned in the last video, including underpricing, including lack of strategy, including overwhelm and burnout, including lack of delegation, including lack of systems and processes. What are the things that we need to be focusing on as a solopreneur business to be able to sort of get ourselves out of that? Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to sit down and make sure that we're in the right market and we're in the right niche and we've got the right product or services that we're going to market, and we've actually identified what our unique value proposition is so that we can be competitive. And all of this will come initially from making sure that we start looking at the strategy of the business. Now, when I talk about strategy, I am not talking about let's put down some goals for the next few years. I'm talking about what is the end destination that we want this business to achieve over the next 5 years or 3 years, and working backwards and saying what kind of obstacles are we going to get in our way and what are we going to do to navigate through these obstacles, and what kind of tactics are we going to use to make sure that everything is coherent and everything is merged together and actually makes sense, and we're focused on one particular destination and we're all heading there. So once you've established that strategy and begun to understand how you're going to stand out in the marketplace, what your unique value proposition is, what market niche you're going to be targeting in terms of like, what is your market segment? I've got a video about it here in terms of how you sort of identify your market segment and what the difference is between that and actually just what focusing on an avatar, because avatars are all good for market messaging, but they're not necessarily where you should be starting on when you're developing your business model. So really beginning to start looking at your business model, testing your business model and making sure that this business model actually is quite sound. Also, begin to identify what types of products and services you can introduce so that you can have a portfolio that's actually bringing you the right cash flow initially, but you're also investing time in developing things that will add value to the business later on. The most important thing as well in all of this is making sure that you've got enough cash in the bank. And that means you need to start looking at your finances and you need to start looking at your budget. And if that means you need to hire an accountant or somebody who's an expert in looking at those things and giving you those numbers so that you can make decisions out of them, then so be it. So this is one investment that you should be starting with, along with potentially delegating out a lot of the tedious admin work that you don't want to be doing so that you've got enough time to start focusing on the business. The important message that I wanted to talk about in this video here really is to break out of that solopreneur mindset, because the solopreneur mindset is a mindset that really has a capacity level limit where you can only grow a certain amount because you're one person, and no matter how amazing you are, I know you're amazing, but no matter how amazing you are, you will hit a ceiling and you will hit a limit. And there are multiple functions here. No wonder you see businesses hiring 20, 50, hundreds, thousands of people to do particular functions that you are trying to do yourself. How can you ever compete with that, and how are you going to do that in a way just by yourself? It's impossible. It really is. And getting yourself out of that solopreneur mindset and understanding that you need to start working on your business and understanding that the roles that you're doing at the moment are not your roles all the time. You're wearing the hat of a marketing person on some days, you're wearing the hat of a salesperson on another day, you're wearing the hat of a sort of an admin person, whoever you need to be. Draw out that sort of organizational chart and it will become very clear to you that you need to start filling in these roles so that you don't overwhelm yourself and you don't head for burnout. But also start with strategy. It really is that important. Make sure that your strategy looks at your business over the next 3 to 5 years and make sure that you understand how you're going to be competitive and what your unique value proposition is, and don't let anything else get in your way. So those are the things that you need to really start looking at so that you can then graduate to the micro business level. First of all, really make sure that your strategy is solid. Revisit your strategy and start including some of your key members in the team that you've built so that they can begin to understand what your strategy is, so that they can align and they can also communicate it as well as you. And the communication becomes a lot simpler when they are part of the strategic development, as well as also having a buy-in into that so that they can be really aligned with what you're doing. Being able to really focus on your strategy and say, right now, this thing seems to work. My business model has been validated as a solopreneur. And what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and scale that. Make sure that your strategy includes how you're going to scale it, the economies of scale. Is it going to still make financial sense as you bring in more people or as you bring in less people and you're still relying on yourself? There are a lot of things where you're beginning to say, right, actually, if I scale this, I still don't have enough time. I just hit a ceiling and I can't take on more than X number of customers or clients. Making sure that your strategy is now scalable and being able to communicate that strategy to your team and to any key players in the team so that they can understand it is a key part of the process. The second thing that you need to be focusing on is making sure that you're still bringing in clients so that you can have cash flow and you can maintain that and you can still pay your team. So client acquisition becomes a big focus of a micro-sized business. And that's typically why a lot of times one of the first essential functions that gets hired out is marketing, so that you can actually still create awareness and actually start having a wider exposure to your particular target market or segment that you're targeting, I guess. One of the fundamental things that you need to be doing inside a micro business is being able to hand over authority and delegate authority to different people, as well as making sure that you hand over ownership so that they can be responsible for what they're experts in. So if it's a marketing person, you want them to come up with their own marketing strategy that aligns to your business strategy. If they're a product development person, then you want them to come up with a product strategy, or you work on it together so that they can actually deliver on what you're doing inside your products or services. One of the key ingredients that's missing at this point here is having the right systems and processes in place. You might have an admin person, a VA. They are still very much used to you delegating tasks to them. Do this and do this, fix my calendar, do this, do this, do this, do this, go through my email list. And then all of a sudden you need to start building a team and you start relying on that person to start liaising with your team, and they may not be qualified enough. And what you probably need to have at this stage is someone who can actually become your integrator, as I talk about it in this video here when I refer to the book Rocket Fuel. Now, an integrator is somebody who can have different names. Either it's an operations person or an online business manager, but someone a little bit more senior who understands how to actually start managing people so they become managers rather than admin, just pure admin. Either hire people that are slightly more senior who can actually help come up with the strategy, take ownership of certain areas in your business, whether it's marketing, whether it's sales, whether it's product development, whether it's customer service. You need to be able to start saying, right, I need to make sure that these people that I'm bringing in are star players. They are the ones that will be able to take what I want and run with it so that I can focus on my role as the CEO of my own business and actually start making sure that the strategy is sound, I'm building the right team, and I'm starting to put in the right work culture between the teams. It's a minor shift, but what you're trying to do is making sure that you've got people in place that potentially later on they could bring in assistants for them or less experienced people under the marketing banner so that they are owning the marketing strategy. Remember, you would have either assigned them to do the marketing strategy and you would have communicated the business strategy to them, or you're working on this together, or you've come up with your own draft initially, and then you bring them in and say, hey, what do you think? Feel free to change it. Let's sit down and discuss and be able to come up with something that they can then be comfortable with, and they understand what your strategy is, and then they have authority to make decisions based on what you're giving them. Having someone like an integrator then can take away a lot of the tedious tasks inside the business and run that business for you. And they will be able to also let you know whether things are feasible, viable, or is it scalable? Is it not scalable? The timelines, because a lot of times we as entrepreneurs are quite usually visionaries where we start saying, right, actually, I want to be able to do this tomorrow, actually yesterday. Yeah, we've all been there where we say I want to do this and 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 this in the next 15 minutes. And then the integrator will say that will take 2 years. And you say, no. And then it becomes a struggle and you compromise and make sure that they keep you in check to make sure that things are happening inside the business, where then you delegate authority so that they could chase down the other members in your team so that they can then make sure that things are being done. One of your responsibilities as the CEO of your business is then making sure that everyone, all of these team members that are coming in, have a fantastic working environment that they are really happy in, but communication is transparent. The sort of the way that people communicate with each other inside the business, if they're remote or if they're in an office, it doesn't matter. You're looking at making sure that all of that sort of process is easy to do, and it's very open and it's transparent. And depending on whether you want to create a culture of collaboration or a culture of competition, I prefer collaboration. But there are some businesses that say, hey, let's make people competitive in the sales department, for example, and make sure that they are competing against each other as long as it's in the right spirit. I personally prefer the collaboration side and making sure that everyone's happy, excited, motivated, understanding your mission, understanding your vision. So your communication to your team becomes really, really crucial at this stage. So the next one is balancing quality and growth. It's a really important one, because as you grow, one of the things that we did as a mistake in one of my previous companies is we grew too quickly and we didn't have the right people in place. We didn't have the right systems and structures in place, and quality got impacted negatively. And that is really something that you need to stay on top of, because you are now beginning to let go. No longer do you have that tight grip on everything and making sure that it is done impeccably to your standards. You are bringing in other people and saying, hey, why don't you do it? And making sure that you've got the right people to do that first is really important. Making sure that you've got the right people who are motivated and want to stick around. Yes. Being able to scale and grow and maintaining that quality can be a real challenge. And one of the things that I always suggest to people is make sure that you've really got your systems and processes in place, your policies in place, that you've got the right HR team now in place to make sure that you're finding the right people. Make sure that you've also got the right operations person in place, and making sure that you're upskilling your people and putting the right quality checks and measures. Having stage gates where you say, like, let's check this and make sure that this is still according to our fantastic standard that we've made sure that we're having. But also now in the customer team, it becomes a lot more important to start hiring people, not just for sales and marketing, but now for after sales. Making sure that you've got people that are managing people like accounts, if it's a business to business, or if it's for retail or customers, this might be having a customer service department. Hello. Where you've got customer service and making sure that you are retaining the quality, making sure that you're improving on that quality and getting the right feedback from your clients or customers, and making sure that that actually gets fed back into your loop so that it doesn't happen again. So these are things that now become a lot of things that you need to start juggling. And that's why you sitting there and sort of doing the day-to-day tasks of working inside your business at this stage and micromanaging is not going to work. What you need to be doing is having that bigger bird's eye view as the CEO of your business and saying, right, how do I make sure that this whole machine of my business actually functions? Let me treat my business as a product and let me make sure that it's optimized. And being able to actually work from sort of a bird's eye view, yes, you will at times roll up your sleeves, you have to, and get down and do some things that need to be done until you find the right people to do them. So balancing quality and growth, including getting the right people, upskilling the right people, giving them training, making sure that you've got enough feedback for your products and services, all of that and a whole bunch more is a challenge at this stage. And this is one of the things that you need to make sure that you're on top of as you're scaling your business in a small size company. Let's have a look at the next one. Right, I touched upon this one in the last point, but I'm going to give it its own sort of point, if you will, because it's that important. And that's making sure that you've got the right people in place and making sure that you retain those people. It's no longer a case now at this size of business for you to start looking at poor quality work, the cheapest that's around, whether it's just VAs or an assistant or any of these things. You need to start looking at the best people for that specific specialization. And you need to start interviewing and advertising and begin to build an awesome team.
You're hired.
That is the only way that you're going to really make sure that you grow to that next level. It's the time to really make sure that you're bringing in the right people and having the right training programs for them so that they can continuously develop. And if there are new things that happen or challenges that happen for them, you're giving them a ladder for them to grow. You're giving them a path as well for them to grow inside the business, where they know that by giving you a better business, by giving you and growing your business for you, they are finding ways to grow themselves in their own career path. Otherwise, if you stop and you just say, that's the end of the line, this is all I do, and I'm not going to give you any more. I'm not going to give you any more training. I'm not going to give you a higher sort of like promotions down the line. The motivation goes, the challenges go, and the boredom kicks in, and they will be looking for other places. And what they will do is you will then have to bring in more people, to find more people, invest in actually hiring more people and bringing them in and training them again at the same level of requirements that you need to have. And it's going to cost you time and money, and it's just not worth it. Make sure that you are working hand in hand with HR so that they can find the best way to really keep your team motivated and retaining them. Another really important challenge at this stage is actually having client dependence, because up until now, you've probably now secured 1 or 2 major clients and you are relying on that small market for your business. And what the trick is at this stage is to start expanding into a bigger target market, to start attracting new customers, to potentially play in slightly other target markets, or getting more exposure and looking at branding yourself. And being able to have that independence from relying on just the clients that you've always kind of spoken to before, and based on referrals or based on whatever it is that you've been able to secure those clients, now taking your business to a wider market becomes a huge challenge. And this is where marketing really comes in. This is where branding comes in. This is where you really need to start looking at attracting new customers as part of your day-to-day business routine. But also, in addition to that, it might be a case where you start looking at modifying certain products or services that you've got to then start exploring other target markets or other potential solutions. And that's why not only do you need to have people looking at your brand, people looking at your marketing, people looking at your sales, you might also now need to start having R&D, where they're looking at ways to modify or develop new products and services for you and for your business to really start growing. Another thing here then is also partnerships and collaboration, because that really helps catapult you. If you can find partnerships, collaboration, where you're looking at ways of, whether it's by joint ventures or just partnerships or affiliate marketing, being able to find these kind of partnerships is going to be really important at this stage of your business. So up until now, you've been playing things on a slightly relatively smaller playing field. But if you are now to start growing beyond the £2 million mark to 10 and beyond that, then you'll need to really start looking at a wider marketplace. No longer are you just niching down, you're actually niching potentially up and making sure that you've got a wider exposure and a much, much more recognizable brand. Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next video.